All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Route Consultant Weekly webinar. For those of you who haven't seen me before, I'm Leah Nelson, and I work on the education team with Josh Gregory, who is our frequent webinar host here on the RC webinars. I specifically primarily work with financials and business analysis for all of our sectors and silos, so FedEx and really everything else, looking at market trends, valuing businesses, all those numbers related things. So before we jump into the content of today's webinar, I do have a couple of things to read out. So first, we have a quick disclaimer that we have to read as we do every week. So Route Consultant is not endorsed by, is not recommended by, and is not recommended by Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. Route Consultant is not sponsored by, is not approved by, is not associated with, and has no connection whatsoever with Federal Express Corporation, FedEx Ground, or Amazon. So basically, all that this means is you won't hear any materially non-public information on this webinar today, but we hope that you hear some very helpful information nonetheless. So again, before we get started, I do want to say at the end of kind of the content, at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, we'd love to get those answered, whether they're on today's topic or really anything in the industry. If you do have a question, put it in the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Do not put it in the chat function. If you put it in the chat function, I probably won't see it. We won't get it answered. But if you put it in the Q&A function, we will see it and we will do our best to get it answered. Also, if you come up with a question later on, you think of something tomorrow or next week or whenever it is, feel free to email us at info@routeconsultant.com and we will get that question answered for you. So today, we will be chatting about what happens if your FedEx business slips into bronze in the metal system. So with that, we will welcome on Amy and Dave Byers to talk about that.
Hi guys, I'm Amy Byers with Slicker Trucking. Dave and I operate P&D, both 7-day operations. We're in an express terminal, small contract sizes, large contract sizes, rural, in-town mix. We also operate line haul. We do city spots and short local runs, and we also operate in custom critical. And that's Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave Byers. I handle a lot of the day-to-day operations, terminal wise, and Amy does a lot of the behind the scenes, the HR, payroll, things like that.
You got it.
Perfect. Amazing. Y'all are certainly experts and we love having you on. So we'll just jump right in. So basically, we hear all the time contractors find themselves in what's, the bronze metal category. So can you just give us a brief overview of, what that means, how it's scored, and really how you slip into bronze?
Sure thing. So overlook on metals just in general. Metals is kind of just a snapshot look of all the other metrics that we are held to as contractors. So service, safety, customer experience, and productivity, which is the old efficiency. How many runs you're running, that you're delivering your boxes, what your customer experiences are as far as satisfaction, accidents. The safety portion can really go from anything from driver fitness. So if your med cards are active and all that good stuff, to any type of drug screens, things like that happen to your contract, all the way to hours of service, roadside inspections, and of course, accidents and things like that. There is a weighted scale on each of those. Obviously, service and safety are first and foremost, with customer experience and productivity being lesser weights. And that's all available on MyGroundBiz for everybody to look at and kind of figure out what those things are. But there is definitely a bigger focus on safety and then service. But it is one good way to take a snapshot and look at your business and kind of give you an idea of what's going on. So obviously gold is where everybody shoots for. Well, maybe not us, but gold is the top, right? Just like any medal systems like the Olympics, gold, silver, and bronze. Silver is still a great place to be. And then bronze will indicate that you are failing or not failing, maybe not hitting metrics in one or more category. So, and these are a 1-month look back, and then they actually do a little bit longer for some contractual evaluations, they go back a little bit further. But your bronze is representative from a month-to-month standpoint, and you should get a conversation, a deep conversation and understanding of what your medal is for that month that you're being rated, and have a conversation with your terminal manager. They should explain it to you, kind of give you the breakdown. But it's pretty easy to understand. But again, just kind of a overview, holistic look of kind of how your contract's doing.
Have you all ever, gotten a bronze medal before? And if you have, how did that happen?
So that's a sticky conversation here for Slicker, because we do pride ourselves on being kind of the best at what we do.
Of course, of course.
We definitely shoot for silver. It's a financially and contractually safe place for us to be. And I know we talk about this in some other sessions, so I encourage anybody to ask us about that. But yes, we have slid into bronze. Typically, it's an efficiency standpoint, or maybe a month where we were doing some training and had maybe more accidents than normal. The two that we had specifically were in the August, September timeframe. We hire for peak in July and August. So we're onboarding quite a few people, which means that we have to keep our current employees working and training the new people. So there's a lot of people on a lot of small routes. So our stop counts are really lower, and our workforce, our logins are way up there. And then obviously with new people, there are some incidents and accidents that obviously happen when people are new. And we do that so that they're not doing that at a higher rate during the winter months and when the packages are coming for peak. So we do, we have in two contracts, we did slip into bronze in the, I think it was August, September timeframe, but again, snapped right back to silver. And when we look at that metric, we're like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. Because there were some intentional reasons for why that happened. Obviously the accidents were intentional, but the new hires were intentional, and that's a fallout from there. But bronze in general, we actually, this was a sticky one. It was already on our hot topic for this week, and we did slide into bronze in one of our contracts. Luckily, we brought this immediately to our senior manager, and we've actually escalated it because we don't think the algorithms and the contract data is correct. So we are kind of working through that process. So yeah, so it's been, I think we had 3 different measures in the kind of history of metals that we've actually slipped into bronze. One of the other things that is a huge risk for us, but we prefer to stay, again, when we shoot for silver and we maintain silver, kind of one false move and you're in bronze. It's the only place to go if you slip. So when you maintain gold, you kind of have that silver buffer if you kind of struggle a little bit for a month, where we maintain that silver again for a lot of different intentional reasons. It's just the way that we've found to run our business. But the bronze, yeah, it's our guys get super prideful about it. They're like, what? We're busting our butts and we're training right, we're doing all these things, and we're bronze. But it's not typical. Bronze, if you are bronze, it can be representative of some strains.
You said, of course, it makes sense that, pre-peak season would be a very common time to slip into bronze, probably for a lot of people, just new hires and all of those things. Are there any other kind of common ways that you see people slipping into bronze outside of peak season?
Yeah, so Dave commonly says this, that it's not a surprise if you are truly earning a bronze, right? And it's not because you're overhired or a reason, that kind of makes more sense. That's a logical reason for maybe going through a growing pain or something like that. You probably had a conversation and maybe even have had action as far as like curative action or a letter of assurance or something. You're having conversations, right? You know that you're not meeting your service. You know that you're struggling in maybe a customer experience category, or that you're just hitting a bunch of stuff. So these are not new conversations. So if you're having a conversation in one or more of these areas, it's likely you're going to slip back in your medals, because again, that medal score is an overall way for you to look at your contract and go, how am I doing? How are my guys doing? It's a great tool, right? And being that we have access to Spotlight and all the metrics, it's a great place to be. So So we talk about this all the time. Like, it's not a surprise, and we hear people on different platforms saying like, "Oh, I'm bronze. This doesn't make sense." I'm like, really? You might have had a heads up. But if it is a question, Dave and I keep a lot of our own data. You'll hear us say this a lot. We're in the contract. We're making sure that the metrics are met. We're monitoring quite often. So if you start to see yourself slip, make sure you're capturing your own data as well, so that you can match it up against what you're seeing in Spotlight. And if there are any discrepancies, to have those conversations.
Absolutely. So you kind of mentioned, you know, y'all fell into bronze for a little bit. It was, you knew what it was for. It was not a consistent, regular thing. But how does being consistently in bronze impact your contract? Can you lose your contract?
So one bronze, you're not out. So, take a deep breath. And FedEx does give you some what they call focus areas, right? So you get your medal and they'll say these are the areas you need to focus on. I think Dave, we had so some of them are suggestions and recommendations, and some of them are true areas of focus. So we had 99.7.
Yep, service was good.
Service was good, but it was a focus area. So you got to kind of read between the lines in that. Like, could I have gotten 99.9? Could I have gotten 100%? Sure. But this is not the area that I need to really target. You need to look at some of these other areas. So look at all of your focus areas and look to see what you can improve upon and how to do that, pretty quickly. So no, one bronze, it's not one strike and you're out. And to be fair, it's not even really 3 strikes and you're out. Each case, each contract is individual, and that's a conversation for you to have, or the contractor to have with the customer, right? With the terminal managers. Metals is not an intention to grade you and to fail you. It is a monthly snapshot to allow you to improve quickly. So the idea is that if you are bronze, you need to take active steps to improve. Even if you maintain bronze, if you can prove that you're actively taking steps to improve, they're going to respond to that. And you can have those conversations with your terminal managers and your BDS, your service people, your business relations person. But they need to see that progress, right? They want to see that you're doing better, that you're taking steps to improve, and you're not just like, whatever, I don't care. Same. So that's the idea behind the medals. They really do want to see the improvement, and they're giving you a chance every month instead of waiting and going, wow, that was 4 months and you really sucked. And now what are you going to do about it? You're like, well, now I can't go back. Right. So the medals being that it's a monthly look back is kind of a nice thing. It gives you an opportunity to look. So while yes, multiple bronzes are probably an indicator that something else is broken, and you're probably having other conversations sidebar from your medals conversations about that if you are struggling in service safety. I mean, we have these conversations all the time, whether they're, code 85s or you're bringing stuff back or whatever this looks like in your contract. These are not new conversations, especially if it's repeating bronze. So, but no, I don't even think repetitive bronze. I mean, it says that it references it here and there about, losing some opportunities to be evaluated and things like that. But I honestly believe that in the 18 years, they don't want to oust you or get rid of you. I really think they're providing an opportunity for you to see what they see and make corrections if need be. And if you don't know how to do that, between masterclass and your terminal manager and other contractors, like lean on them and say like, okay, I tried that and it didn't work because I'm still in bronze. What does that look like? But also look at your ratings, look at the scores. If you were down and your second month of bronze, you're up, that's a good trend, right? Positive trends. That's what you're looking for. You might not be able to get out of bronze in 1 month. But if you can show, that you're progressively working towards silver, I believe those are conversations that the customer is willing to have with you. So I don't think it's like a one and done. But I do think that there's a lot of, there's obviously some fear that you can't get out of it, but you really do have to do your job, right? You have to do the work to get out. You can't just let it happen and think that, doing the same thing. It's like that definition of insanity. You can't do the same thing over and over and expect, you're going to magically end up in silver. So So I think that's, kind of where we are, but we're constantly looking at it. We actually look at it much more often than monthly. So we kind of see what our scores are. We're monitoring our customer ratings. We're encouraging our drivers to ask for those ratings, for the positive ratings when people like us, right? So those are the good things. So encourage the positive because it's a game of numbers, right? So more good will offset your bads. So I think that's it's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. And is that updated when you look at it, you say you look at it more than once a month? How often is that updated on a daily basis or?
So Spotlight is daily. Like you can get those stats every day. We can get our ride scores every day, what posts new and things like that. So yeah, you can look at the data. But it doesn't change your score. But you can monitor to see what's going on, and then we're kind of where you're heading.
Absolutely. So you mentioned, talking to FedEx, people in the terminal about your score, whether you're trying to improve or you have questions. So if you were to approach someone in the terminal with a conversation about your score, what data should you have? Should you put together? Who do you want to talk to? Are there things you shouldn't say?
Well, I think anything negative. I think the idea is that, we forget sometimes that they're our customer. So I think, having your data together, asking questions instead of pointing out flaws. That's always, why is this like this? Why did this happen? Why am I don't think this is correct. Can you look at it? My numbers say that it should be this. I'm calculating this. So I think it's all about relationships. So if you have a good relationship with your terminal manager, if you have a good relationship with your BDS, if you've been respectful prior and they can say like, okay, you're really concerned, like you don't want to be bronze. You're not just saying, screw you and screw the whole program. You're saying like, I'm leaning in and I really want to do better. And I want you to see that I'm doing better. And I want that to be reflected in my score. I think that's a great way to start the conversation. So I think that's, and that's where we are. So like I said, there's a little bit of a discrepancy in some calculations. We took it immediately to our terminal manager. The terminal manager is in full agreement that there seems to be something off. And we just escalated it and we said like, hey, here's the situation and we would like you to take a look at these numbers because if it's wrong, maybe it's wrong across the board or maybe it's wrong for us, but and how do we, and if I'm truly looking at the numbers, I don't see a focus area, even though there's 7 of them for me to focus on, none of them are outside of the range. So what does that look like for me? And we really do. Like if there's something that we're slipping on, we really need to look at it. But it also could be, I know productivity was a big one. It is -13 here. And we have some really, really rural routes in this contract. So we're sending people out with kind of a half a day's work on purpose. It's just not safe to keep them out in this weather that long. Or at all for that matter, but you got to get the boxes out. So we run really heavy. We have not pulled back between the volume, the box sizes, the ICs, and the cold weather and snow. We just have not even collapsed any of our peak routes. We've kept them all in place, and we are just running so heavy that for sure our productivities. And that was my concern is that if December proved to be unproductive, what is January going to look like now? So that's why I want it looked at now so that I know kind of what I'm up against. But we've intentionally run heavy because it's just a safety function and not maybe safety of trucks and accidents, but, human safety,
Yeah.
which is my priority above anything. We'll have the contract conversation later, but as long as my people are safe, and home to their families, that's the goal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes if you said -13, you said, I think that's
Yeah.
takes precedent there is to not get hypothermia.
Yeah, yeah. It was definitely cold this morning. It's a little bit warmer. I think we're at 3.
So warm.
I mean, it's like a heat wave. So yeah. But I think these are general key points to the metals program is, it's a tool. It's not a report card. I mean, it is a report card, but it's supposed to be used as a tool also. It is a snapshot. If you don't have your data, it is a good way for you to see all the different areas and how, especially if you're an AO that's a little bit more distant and you have an on-site BC, it's a great way to measure them. It's also a great way to incentivize them and bonus them. So, use those tools. They're there for you, and it's from the customer. So, it's what they're seeing, it's what they're looking at. So but it's a great tool. You're able to see exactly what you're looking at, but don't be afraid to question it. Don't be afraid to dig in. And I think it's important that that if you are into the bronze, that you look at it and you start making those changes really quickly. Again, as I said, if you're in bronze for a specific reason, whether it's safety or accidents or service, these conversations have probably already been had with you. So, you can expect that it's going to reflect your medal score soon, either this month or next month, depending on where you are in the cycle.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else we'd like to add before we jump into Q&A?
I think so. Dave and I specifically, I think, and we talk about this at Expo and some of the other things about why we prefer silver. But again, like I said, there are some risks. So every one of these choices of what you shoot for, kind of what your goal is and how you manage your business and how you manage productivity and how you manage all these different categories. I mean, safety and compliance is not that one's not interpretable, right? That one is pretty black and white. Customer experience, that one I would love to dig into a little bit more, because I know that sometimes we're not getting negative comments for things that we're doing, right? It's not a last mile score. It might be a product score, or it was broken, or whatever, or it was wrong. I don't know. We get a lot of different, negative product reviews, and a lot of them aren't specific to where they wanted the box and how the box was handled, or how the driver approached them, where they left it, whatever. So there's, I'm hoping that in the future there's going to be a way for us to dispute those, but we keep track of them. Even though they're not removed from the ride score necessarily at this time, we keep track of them, we forward them. And then, if there were ever a conversation that said like, well, your ride score is terrible or your customer service is terrible, we can bring those forward and say, well, these we've been keeping track of, and these ones or twos, don't fit. So we want those, removed. We just do that as a safeguard. We do that with a lot of things, just kind of keep our own notes. So if there is ever a conversation, we kind of have those on hand.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense to have that, because, a broken item may not necessarily be because of anything that you did. So
no, I mean, it could have been broken in California and it's been touched 100 times before it hit my truck, right? I mean, unless it's like, right? We always say if it's shaking and broken and it sounds broken, put a 10 on it. But other than that, we literally got one, I think in our last presentation, we said, I had one where the lady said her Nikes didn't fit. Like, clearly not my driver's fault. So, we pull those out and keep a list, and just kind of keep the odd ones and the ones that are not targeted towards the driver themselves, that shouldn't rate but do still end up in the calculation a little bit. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we do have some questions rolling in, which is great. So before we hop into all of that and any more things on metals that we want to get to, I'm going to take a quick look at listings and events for this week. So we do have 7 total new listings this week, which is quite a bit. We have 4 P&D listings and 3 line haul listings. So for those P&D listings, we've got one in Western Missouri, which is 19 routes, pretty big business, listed for $850,000. It's got an 11% EBITDA, 29 employees, 23 trucks, and 2 managers. It's also a low mileage operation with low sim miles. The next P&D operation is in Northern Georgia, which is 8 P&D routes listed at $1,050,000. It's got a 25% EBITDA, which is quite high, which is great. 9 employees, 10 trucks, and a manager as well. And we've got one in Southern Louisiana, another big business here. 19 P&D routes listed at $700,000, around that 10% EBITDA again. 20 employees, 21 trucks, 2 managers, and the fleet on that one is newer model vehicles. So that's awesome. And there's a couple spare vehicles with that one too. We've got Northern Florida is going to be our last set of P&D routes for sale. So that's going to be 13 routes, also listed at $1,050,000, 20% EBITDA, 19 employees, 2 managers, and 15 trucks. And that one has some assumable truck debt on it, if anyone is interested in that as a kind of supplementary financing source. And then we've got those 3 line haul listings. We've got one here in Middle Tennessee. That is going to be 1 line haul run listed at $100,000. That's a dedicated solo, and it does come with a truck. We've got 2 runs out of Central Florida listed at 1.2 million. That has 7 employees because both of those runs are going to be team runs. And it's got 4 trucks on that one, so a couple extra trucks for those 2 runs. And then the last listing we've got is North Central Georgia. 8 line haul runs listed at 3.3 million if you're interested in a slightly larger business. 2 dedicated team runs and 6 unassigned team runs with 9 trucks. And this one also comes with a manager. So it is a larger business, but it does have a manager in place. And then for events, if you're interested in meeting the team and coming to an event, we've got our next event in Miami on March 11th. So that's going to be a happy hour if you want to come down to Florida, experience some warm weather in March and join us for that happy hour. And then we also have a new investor workshop on March 27th and a line haul roadshow on March 28th. So those are going to be back to back, the 27th and the 28th. And those are both going to be in Houston if you're interested in those. You can register for those events on our website, and there should be a link in the chat if anybody wants to pop in. And now we'll head over to the Q&A.
Right. What do we got?
Yeah, so the first question, how is the rating done and what happens if you get bronze, which we've kind of given an overview of.
Yeah. So the rating is a monthly look back on all of your stats, your metrics that FedEx requires from you. So from your better communication, your technology compliances, your, like I said, accidents, your driver fitness, any hours of service violations, whether you're P&D or line haul, as well as roadside inspections, whether that's a good roadside inspection or a bad one. All of those things are weighted or measured and then weighted into the safety category. Service is your pickup service and your delivery service. And then again, those are weighted and kind of thrown into your service category. Customer experience will be, anything that you are specifically required to do with the customer to provide that best service. So whether it's the pictures or the scores or your feedback or, those types of things, that all gets weighted or measured and then thrown into the customer experience category. And then productivity is an interesting one. It has a lot to do with costing, but specifically more about meeting your target as far as what they think you should run as far as resources. So resources on a weekly basis, monthly basis, daily basis, how many drivers you are running in order to cover a service area. So if your work area is 1,000 and you're running 10, they think you should run 9. You're going to be in negative productivity because you're running more people than they think you should be. If you're running 8 and they think you should run 9, you're going to get a positive score. So that'll definitely help. But that productivity is a little fuzzy. Like I said, on those months where you're training or where you're onboarding specifically for, you just can't training is like a 2-week process, if not longer. So with this new CT training or call cert training, you can't just say, okay, the volume's here, let's let them loose. And now you're productive. While you can obviously send people home or give people vacation time and things like that. A lot of times, your employees need a job. So you can't rob the current employees to give days to the existing ones. So you try to play that game a little bit, but at the end of the day, I think, the productivity is definitely, and that's what kind of keeps us in silver, and we're okay with that. So, that's kind of the balance that we have. But all of those things are then weighted. Again, safety and service being higher than customer experience and productivity. And then that kind of algorithm and all the fun math on the backside, fuzzy math, pops out a medal score. So I hope that was a little bit kind of nodded to how it's looked at.
I think it does. So we've got the next one from an anonymous attendee. Basically says they have a good relationship with their terminal manager, but indicated he doesn't have much sway with FedEx if you go into your new contract renegotiations with Bronze.
Okay.
So, is there any knowledge that either agrees or disagrees with this, that the terminal manager, may not have any sway over FedEx corporate?
I think FedEx relies pretty heavily on FedEx corporate's local right? On the local opinion and service metrics. Again, I don't think they're out to get you. So I'm not quite sure if the terminal manager can quote on save you if you're that far down the road as far as, not providing good service. But if you're in good standing and you slip, I see the question. He said, and if you're doing it, if you haven't, right, and you're providing good service, I would continue to focus on doing those things that keep you in the good and rather than focusing on what happens if you do wrong, right? So I think just that moving that energy to providing better service and innovating within your own company to achieve those better metrics would probably be a better focus of time.
And 1 or 2 months of bronze doesn't make you lose your right to the contract either.
Yeah.
Perfect. And we've got one. Basically, he says you can make an argument that achieving gold status can eat into your margins because you have to increase your investments in spare trucks and spare drivers and experienced drivers. So training and all of those things it really have to invest in the business financially to maximize your score on all service levels. Is it worth the extra investment to achieve golds? Or, y'all have mentioned several times that you're comfortable being in silver, and I think we've got some other webinars on this topic as well. So
yeah. So Dave, you came up with this. I mean, it hit us like a brick one day. We were, constantly striving for gold. As I mentioned, the Slicker brand alone, we focus on doing our very best, hitting top metrics, always being above 99. And my managers, our senior managers, really wear it on their sleeve. So when this medal program rolled out, they were super stressed, right? Like all of a sudden we're in silver, and what's second place look like, right? It's like that funny movie, if you're not first, you're last. Like they were really like stressing. And it was hard for us. And Dave did some analysis and really came up with the fact that when we were striving for gold, to Dan's point here, we were losing money. Because we were pushing our guys way too hard, which was then causing turnover. Because we don't have strictly in-town routes. We don't have like a ton of P1000 routes, right? We have a hybrid. We have a lot of hybrid routes, and then we have some really, really rural. So in order to get productive and do kind of all the things quickly and efficiently and maximize everything, it was costing a ton of money. It was either costing money in accidents. So we would get gold, and then all the fallout from gold, right? Accidents or burnout or whatever that looks like would hit us next month, and then we'd be back down into silver. But the costs associated with getting gold kind of outweighed being gold. So we really kind of met with our managers and came to a meeting of the minds that silver is where we need to be. And it was a safe place for us. It allowed us to comfortably exceed FedEx's expectations, but also manage to our finances in a way that made sense for us, and manage to the human capital, our employees that mean the most to us. So it kept everybody happy. It reduced our turnover, kept costs down, kept accidents down because people weren't rushing. So they were taking some time. So that's kind of our overall take. That's kind of our silver is the new gold in a nutshell presentation. But so for us, no, it's not worth the extra investment to achieve gold, especially in highly charged economic times where fuel might be up and other costs might be up. This is just an area to kind of and I don't want to say do the bare minimum, because silver is not the bare minimum. Silver is an excellent rating. So it's beyond, it's meeting or exceeding the expectations set forth by the contract, and really doing best by your people. So it's just a really good mix. And you have to do, again, it's your business. So you have to meet those expectations, but it's also your decision to run your business the way you want to run it. So is it worth the extra investment to achieve gold? I would say, it's each person's own choice, and it's their financial mix. If you have paid off trucks and your overhead, you're flying a little bit higher on your net, then you might have a little bit of room to invest and to really hit that gold. But it is difficult. It's definitely more difficult in our rural areas. accidents, trucks, breakdowns, things like that. Tires, we're going through tires, pretty frequently. So there's some delays. So we're throwing more people on. But it takes a little bit more to manage. So I think everybody's contract is individual. I know I'm friends with many gold contractors and they maintain gold and they're really good at it. It's just not our path.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions at the moment, so I will give it another second
Sure.
and see if anybody is typing right now.
I will just add also, if you're a current contractor, there is a wealth of information between how to read Spotlight, how to manage your metals. Everything is available to you on My Ground Biz, which is the portal that FedEx allows its contractors to get this information and learn more and be more educated and be more present, and understand our business a little bit better. So I encourage everybody to, get those documents, because you do have access to it as a contractor. Unfortunately, they're not, able to be distributed. But when you're in the network and you're already up and running, use those tools. There's a, they don't just say, hey, figure it out on your own. They give you, they give you the handbook on how to do it their way and to hit those, metrics. So, I would definitely add that. If there's not a question, that would have been my 2 cents, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Yeah. So it's not ambiguous. You're not flying blind,
No, they're telling you exactly what they want and how to get there. Again, then it's your job to take those, meet them, and then run your business within that model. I guess I always say, once you get in the sandbox, there's rules to play in the sandbox, but then how you play in the sandbox and what toy you play with is up to you.
I think that's a perfect analogy.
Yeah. They make the rules, but we definitely have a lot of room and how to achieve those things. So each person, each contract, each work area are all different. Like I said, gold's fantastic. We found, and Dave, I don't know if you want to talk about like kind of some of those things that you came across, the financials, accidents were up.
Yeah, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
You covered some of that.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. So
All right.
very informative. Thank you so much. Again, if anyone does come up with questions, if you're watching now or watching later, email us at info@rawconsultant.com and we're happy to get those answered. And we'll see everybody in a week or two.
Sounds good, guys. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thank you.